And this is how we welcome you to Artistic Spot, a show about art, talent, and entrepreneurship, where you are also the artist. In Artistic Spot, we're actors of our movies, singers of our musicals, and writers of our books. Today, we have a very special guest. My name is Jose Rodriguez Marmol, and I'm your host in episode 101. And today, we are joined by Jonathan Perez.
Hi.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you very much for joining us in episode 101 of Artistic Spot. We're starting a whole new milestone with you. You're an artist, mostly digital art. You have exhibited a few pieces of art at Favo in Studio 244. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you ended up doing art?
Okay, so my name's Jonathan Perez. I actually go by the alias of Trippyville. So that's kind of the alias I go by for my art. And I was born and raised here in Orlando, Florida. And basically how I started making art was in elementary school. You know, in elementary school, you're surrounded by a lot of markers, color pencils, a lot of just like creative things that surround your environment. And one of the coolest class that really I engaged with was art class, so happenly. Making paper mache sculptures and all that stuff. So that's what really got me in tune with art a little more. However, it wasn't really serious at the time. It was just something I liked because, when you're young, you're still trying to figure things out. So that's how that started initially.
How you ended up taking that leap to digital art and start doing digital things besides working with your hands. And now, especially nowadays, with everything's a digital world. So we have everything accessed through our cell phones, in our laptops. So how has that process been for you?
A very unexpected and very challenging at the same time because I couldn't really see myself doing it at first. I looked at something as, it's too complicated. I think the digital art world is gonna destroy the real art in a sense. So I was a little bit on edge about kind of trying it, but I just saw how time was constantly moving and it's moving faster than ever. And there were certain pieces I wanted to make by hand, but it was easier to do it the digital way. So that's what really got me into making more digital art now more than ever. And that started around 2015 after I graduated a 9-month program I did here in Orlando. It was actually Avalon Tech.
Okay.
Yeah, so once I finished with that, that's when I really started getting more into digital art, and now I love it more than ever.
You said something really interesting, which is that you think that digital art will kill regular art. What do you think about that nowadays, especially that you are in a creative village right now showcasing your art, and most of the artists here at Favo, they still work with oil, watercolors, acrylic. How can you tell if that real world art it's going to survive, taking into consideration we're currently living in a digital world?
Okay, so I took that really into consideration, and that's why I decided to even still continue making regular art, because I want to give the best of both worlds. Because worst comes to worst, the internet could really shut down. You can't shut down a painting that's been made in person. God forbid, you never know, but that's why I still keep original tradition going. And just so for my kids in the future, I could leave something behind for them, whether they want to keep it in their households or if they become collectors themselves and they still move it around for me. That's initially why I still continue doing regular art.
Now that you mentioned the word tradition, how do you see yourself in the next 5 years, and how do you want to be remembered as an artist?
I want to be remembered as something because I do things for people. I make art for myself, but I do it for people. So I want to leave a legacy that's much bigger than just creating these digital pieces and just a regular acrylic painting on the wall. I really want to make this something to where people can have a job doing it as well, something that they could provide for their families as well, and it continues years on. A great example is that kind of even how Disney built a theme park and created jobs for millions of people. I want that the same for myself, whether it's doing my artwork or doing something much bigger in the future.
How much of you is in these pieces that we see around? How much of Jonathan? When it comes to digital art, of course, there's a creative process. It's not the same thing sitting in front of a canvas with acrylic paints or oil or
Right.
watercolors or maybe acrylic markers, but you're actually working with a computer, with an iPad, and there are plenty of resources nowadays. But how much of Jonathan it's in every single piece that you create?
Believe it or not, all of them. And the reason why is because when you're making a regular piece traditionally, no matter what medium it is, it takes concentration and repetition. Digital art's the same way because you're doing everything program based. So not only you got to memorize and recognize the tools, you also have to use them constantly in order to execute the techniques you're really trying to put on and the digital world is usually artboard or just background, but basically a lot of similarities just in different ways, if that makes sense. So that's how I really see them a lot alike now, believe it or not.
What's the story behind every piece?
So basically, with the whole concept of Trippyville, it's a dreamlike imagery expressed in different mediums. So that's where I still kind of have different types of art intertwined with each other. So I have like acrylic and the digital art, and basically a lot of these are in the same world but just in different scenarios. And I like to continue making that to keep people intrigued. In other words, more in a positive light than anything.
I see different characters in every piece that you have around the studio. Can you tell us a little bit about how you create those characters? Do they have a backstory, or it's just simply a moment of creativity and you decided I'm going to work on this piece with no specific background? Do they have a backstory? Do they have a background that you want to tell a story when you actually people are walking around and seeing every piece?
Yes, usually normally the characters do give they do symbolize something. For example, for this piece here, The Lost Traveler, you do have a character that's walking around here, and basically there's an actual human here. And sometimes as humans, we do feel alone when it comes to creating, because we all often think, okay, how I'm gonna articulate this to people when I'm already misunderstood. So basically, this character is supposed to symbolize looking at another character alone in the same scenario, basically making them feel welcomed, basically making them feel you're not alone, you are here, and you have to continue.
How have you handled that misunderstanding in your career?
You know, I don't take it personal. Believe it or not, I don't take it personal. I know all of us individually come from somewhere, and we're all trying to get somewhere at the end of the day. Whether we're teenagers, whether we're young adults, whether we're older adults, we're all trying to get somewhere, and we're all misunderstood in our own ways. So it's more something I had to become more selfless about throughout the years, because you could easily just be, selfish and say me, but the world does not revolve around you. There's a placeholder for time, and there's a frequency for the universe, and you just have to gravitate towards it. And it's not going to be it's not going to be perfect at all. It's not going to be perfect in the way you want it to be, the expectations, etc. You just kind of have to go with it and trust yourself. Trust yourself, trust your gut. Whatever it is you believe in, whether it's a deity or not, trust that the dots will at least connect. Trust that, and believe it or not, you'd be surprised how many people you influence, inspire, and set an example of, whether they surpass you, whether they just enjoy what you do. That's basically how I see it as.
And how you see yourself in the next few years? What's next for Jonathan?
So the next few years, I actually want to expand more in different mediums. So I'm looking forward to actually expanding more into the 3D world. So I'm about to graduate in school for that in the fall. And I want to create more experiences, more exhibitions, more installations. And that's where things are going to go with Trippyville / Jonathan Perez in the next 5 years.
What's your dream goal? Where do you want to go?
It's crazy to say. I don't have an end goal, nor I can't really predict where I'm going. I just want time to, open the doors for me. It's really weird. I can't, it's not that I can't see that far, but, I'm also considering the time we have now too, so I just wanted to unfold.
Now that you mentioned that, I think that's a very important message. How important it is to consider today instead of thinking in tomorrow for Jonathan.
What you do for today is how tomorrow is going to unfold. That's how I believe it. Of course, we make the art for tomorrow, but it's really depending on what happens now, what you put in the world now that's going to happen for tomorrow.
What's happening now in your life as an artist that you can share with our audience?
Time management.
Time
management is very difficult, especially when you're an artist and you're still trying to, you know, move up in the art world. And it's mostly, you know, making the art, but also versus the business of art too that I'm trying to keep up with. And it's not easy, but, you know, if it was easy, then everybody would do it.
That's correct.
So that's where I'm at.
Now, Jonathan, if you were able to have a microphone and stand in front of 100 people and give them a message, what would you tell them and why?
I would tell them to be yourself. If you don't know what to conform to yourself first. So that way you know what you want out of this world. You know, leaders are not meant to be liked. Leaders are not meant to be understood. But if you could show that you are not a follower and you could really excel in the future in any way possible, do that. Be yourself only. Nothing matters. We could be here today, we could be gone tomorrow. Just as long as you be yourself, that's how people are going to remember you as. You don't want to be remembered as someone that couldn't figure you out because you couldn't figure yourself out, you know? So
that's a great message.
Yeah.
Where can people follow you and see the beautiful things you do with digital art and of course other mediums they're going to start working on and that you have worked on before?
Sure. Okay, so I'm primarily on Instagram and Twitter for the most part. I am going to create a TikTok. So my Instagram is actually at Trippyville, at TRIPPYVILLE. And the Twitter is the same thing, but before Trippyville, it's an underscore in the beginning and an underscore at the end. So that's where you'll find me social media wise.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan, for being part of our story. Thank you for creating this magnificent stories and showcasing the importance of being passionate about what you want and being passionate to that message that you want to deliver to others and that legacy that you want to leave behind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
man.
joining us in Artistic Spot.
Yeah.
And for those of you, our audience, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, RJJ Design, on Facebook, JJ Art and Design, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Artistic Spot. And don't forget to tune us back in next week for episode 102 in Artistic Spot, where you are also the artist.